All right, hello and welcome everyone. We'll wait for a few more people to join before we get started. Okay, we'll get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Christina Davis. I'm the co-president of HSMAI South Florida, and welcome to episode 3 of our 4-part series of the Digital Marketing Lunch and Learn webinar series presented by and sponsored by our digital marketing experts at Visergy. Whether you're a seasoned hospitality marketer or just starting out, the series has been designed to give you the skills, tools, and insights you need to grow your digital presence and drive real results. Each session has been designed to give you actionable insights and timely strategies focused on the latest trends that are shaping our hospitality industry. Before I hand it over to Devin, wanted to tell you a little bit about HSMAI. As you know, our industry is complex and we connect the dots. HSMAI is committed to growing business for hotels and their partners and is the industry's leading advocate for intelligent, sustainable hotel revenue growth. And the association provides hotel professionals and their partners with the tools, insights, and expertise to fuel sales, inspire marketing, and optimize revenue. HSMAI South Florida has over 200 local members, and joining HSMAI is easy. Membership perks includes weekly insights from industry experts, just like our friends at Visergy, best practices, case studies from top marketers, customer and market business knowledge programs, and publications, access to industry contacts worldwide, online tools and resources, and educational content to support your career, and also significant savings across all programs, events, and publications. You can get savings like on commercial strategies weeks and certifications like the CHDM. In addition, our chapter focuses on raising money for the Dr. Peter Ritchie HSMAI Scholarship. Last year at our annual gala, we awarded 5 students from 3 local universities, FIU, FAU, and Lynn University. Each fall, the South Florida chapter raises these funds and offers scholarship to deserving students pursuing a career either in undergraduate, graduate programs in hospitality management, tourism, and highly related collegiate or universities in South Florida. So to support, we ask you for your donation. You can scan this QR code through PayPal. Any donation would be greatly appreciated. And at this year's gala that's going to take place at the Margaritaville on October 30th, so save the date, we will be rewarding more students scholarship funds. So looking forward to that. And on a last note, I will turn it over to Devin.
Hi, thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Devin Stiles. I'm the Senior Director of Corporate Marketing for Visergy. Anna has a great webinar lined up for us. So if you have questions throughout, please feel free to use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And we've saved time at the end of the session for Anna to go through those questions. So without further ado, we have Metasearch Mastery with Anna Ajluni.
Thanks, Devin. Hi, everyone. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll kick things off here. All right, so welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. As Devin said, my name is Anna and I'm the manager of the paid media team here at Visergy Digital Marketing. I am really excited to spend some time with you all today. I love talking and I love teaching, so I think I'm in the right spot for that. Just a little bit about Visergy before we get started, just so you know who we are. our company has 25 years of hospitality industry experience working with independent hotels, famous hotel brands, and hotel management groups. We are a full service digital marketing agency specializing in website design, SEO, paid media, account management, and distribution services. So now that I've told you a little bit about Visergy, just a little bit about me. As I said, I'm the manager of the paid media team here at Visergy. I have been in the digital marketing space since, 2016, starting off in social media. And I have been with Visergy for just over 4 years, directing paid strategy for our paid media clients. All right, so just to kick us off, I have a little roadmap of what we are going to cover today throughout this presentation. It's a good thing you guys can't see my hands because I talk a lot with my hands, so they're down here flailing around. But I'm really excited to talk about Metasearch visibility and trends in 2025. There are a lot of important shifts that are happening, and I have a ton of good information to share with you. If you joined us last week for our discussion on SEO for the AI generation with Trish, that was a great kind of foundation for our conversation today and some of the stuff that we're going to get into. So Trish covered a bit about how the search generative experience has affected organic rankings and results. Today, I'm going to be talking about how that applies to paid listings like Metasearch. So to start us off, let's briefly talk about why Metasearch is increasingly important and why it deserves to be a significant part of your digital strategy. So based on some Sojourn data that I found from last year, 72% of travelers now use a Metasearch site before booking. I think this really serves to highlight Metasearch's critical role in the traveler journey. Additionally, Metasearch kind of used to live strictly at the bottom of the funnel, focused on capturing bookings. And while that is still very much true, today with the rise of AI and evolving search behaviors, Metasearch is kind of moving more upstream, influencing travelers in the consideration phase and even in early stage comparisons, which we'll touch on a little bit later in the presentation. This early stage comparison is especially true when we see it being integrated into AI-driven experiences like Google's search generative experience. You may hear me reference that as SGE moving forward, just a little bit shorter of a term. So if I say SGE, I'm talking about search generative experience. Just wanted to clarify that. And I think it's really important for us talking about Metasearch to acknowledge that it's no longer just a booking channel. It's a significant revenue engine that touches on multiple stages of the funnel. And this is how how hotels and hotel marketers can actively shape the traveler's path to a purchase. So now that we know that the people that we all want to reach are using Metasearch as a bigger part of the booking experience, let's talk about the best ways to maximize your visibility on Metasearch. And kicking off the conversation this way will actually lead into our discussion about the search generative experience and how you can be included in Google's AI hotel recommendations there. The factors that Google pulls from to potentially list you in those SGE recommendations are very similar to the factors that also get you good visibility on Metasearch platforms. So let's talk about this kind of visibility equation. I think when most hotels nowadays think about Metasearch, they are thinking and focusing primarily on bid strategy. And the assumption has always been that the more you're willing to spend and the more you bid, the more your ads will show. So the bid strategy conversation is honestly a whole separate discussion for another day. Otherwise, we'd be here much longer than I'm sure all of us can afford today. But my point in mentioning that is that visibility is no longer just about bids. In reality, Metasearch platforms are using an increasingly complex set of signals to decide which hotels get shown in the first place and in what order beyond just bidding. And Google is really at the forefront of these changes in visibility, which, like I said, we'll get into later. So a little teaser for later on in the presentation. But for now, let's talk generally speaking about what Metasearch platforms are looking for so you can get the best visibility out of your ads. So all of the major Metasearch platforms, whether we're talking about Google Hotel Ads, TripAdvisor, Kayak, Trivago, first they're going to check that your hotel meets some of their basic standards for inclusion. So if your content is incomplete, if your rate feed is outdated, or your direct rates are less competitive than OTAs, your hotel may simply be excluded from the results, regardless of how much you're willing to spend. I would say that this is kind of honestly a silent killer in Metasearch. I know that sounds kind of dramatic, but I have worked with and encountered hotels who don't think that their campaigns are working when in reality they're not even showing up because of one of these factors. So whoever is managing your Metasearch, these are just things that they need to be really cognizant of. And those items are on the slide as well. So once you qualify to even be shown, your visibility is determined by a combination of factors, and each platform is going to weigh those factors a little bit differently. But generally speaking, here's what platforms are looking for. Rate parity. So if your direct rate is higher than OTAs, your listings can be downranked or hidden altogether. If you know me, you know that rate parity is a very important topic, and we are actually going to come back to this on a later slide to cover it a little bit more in depth. The next factor is going to be quality assets in your content feed. So your content feed is what is supplying the Metasearch platform with information. So this includes having up-to-date photos, up-to-date room descriptions, amenities, properly tagged amenities, cancellation policies, things like that. Everything that the user would expect to see throughout the course of a booking decision needs to be a quality asset that's coming from your content feed to your whatever Metasearch platform you're using. And something that's also very important and potentially overlooked is the website experience. So shout out to our website team. If you were here in week 1 for our webinar series, you met Jeremiah, our creative director. Throughout this equation, we cannot discount the landing page experience. So we want to ask questions like, is your booking engine fast? Is your website mobile friendly and easy to navigate? I know that Google in particular will lower your visibility if your page load speed is slow or if your overall UI UX experience is poor. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. Next up, something that influences visibility on Metasearch platforms is click-through rate for your ads. So these platforms are rewarding the listings that consistently get clicks. The more users engage with your ad, especially if they complete a booking, the more likely the platform is to show your ad again, because this demonstrates to the platform that there's a high relevance between the search and between your listing, which they will reward. This is something that's really important. We'll kind of get into it with the Google Hotel Ads content that I have later on, but this relevance between the search and your listing is really becoming paramount in this Metasearch landscape and in this AI-driven search generative experience landscape. So something else that's also a factor in visibility for your Metasearch listings is review sentiment. AI-driven platforms like Google and like TripAdvisor are increasingly looking at what people are saying in your reviews, the content of your reviews, not just how many stars you have. So with all of this, I think the key kind of mindset shift that we need to consider here is that having a good bid strategy for Metasearch is highly important, but it will not override things like lack of rate parity, missing content, or poor website experience. So essentially, these algorithms for these Metasearch platforms, your money matters after the algorithm believes that your hotel is worth showing to the traveler. So that is kind of half of the battle. So that being said, if your team is spending on Metasearch and not seeing the results that you want, don't just adjust your bids or assume it's a bidding issue. Audit your parity, audit your content feed accuracy, and evaluate your total booking experience. Because I think the point here is that Metasearch visibility now more than ever is earned just as much as it's bought. Obviously, you have to put forth advertising dollars to be considered and, run ads on these platforms. But beyond that, the better your hotel aligns with traveler expectations, the more often you'll be surfaced, clicked, and booked. So I teased a little bit about talking about Google Hotel Ads a little bit more specifically. Let's get into how this applies to Google Hotel Ads, because what we know of the market right now is that 70% of Metasearch dollars that are spent globally are on Google Hotel Ads. So this is a really significant portion of where Metasearch is happening. So I want to talk about how Google's Gemini AI and the search generative experience is changing how your hotel gets seen on Google. So this isn't really a shift in visibility. Honestly, I would say it's a full kind of rethinking of what it means to earn attention on Google in the first place. Google's algorithms have shifted and they are now looking beyond bids when we talk about advertising. They're looking beyond bids, just as we kind of talked about before. The main focus is on the searcher's intent and not just pricing. Essentially, Google is evaluating how well your hotel matches what the traveler is actually looking for. So this kind of represents a change in search behavior that we've been seeing for a while in favor of natural language searches, which has been a pattern that we've seen for a few years now. Instead of searching, just for an example, instead of searching hotels in Miami, today's traveler might be typing or even speaking to their Google Home, and say something like, find me a romantic beachfront boutique hotel with a spa near South Beach. So as you can see, that search is very different from hotels in Miami. And if you were here last week, Trish talked about long tail keywords, and this search is a really good example of that. Those long tail keywords, Google is using that AI to interpret that intent, and Google can elevate listings that match those specific searched details, even if the hotel is not the highest bidder, which in the past it was pay to play. And if you are placing the highest bid and you're willing to spend the most to reach that user, your ad's probably going to show top of page. So the old playbook is essentially not working as well as it used to. So it used to be pay the most, get the top spot. But now SGE is actually kind of disrupting those rules of visibility. So SGE, the search generative experience, is surfacing AI curated hotel recommendations before any paid or organic listings appear. So this is the graphic that you see on the slide. On the left, we have the old experience before SGE. You'd have paid ads and organic listings. After SGE, you've got the AI curated recommendations, and then paid ads, and then organic listings. So this means that your visibility is no longer guaranteed by highest bid alone. Visibility is really earned through rate parity, through content quality and through how well your reviews and property attributes and all these different types of data that Google can pull in about your property, how well that matches the traveler's search intent. So as marketers, as we move forward as hoteliers and marketers, we are not just optimizing bids, we are optimizing essentially for better relevance as ranked by Google. And the hotels that win in this landscape are going to be the ones that best align with what the traveler wants and not just who is willing to spend the most. So this is definitely a shift that we are kind of seeing come out of this AI generation. So like I said, the graphic on this slide kind of represents the before and after of how the listings appear. So this search generative experience curated list is obviously a place that you want to be as it's coming up in the top spot on the search results page. So let's next kind of move into what actually gets your hotel into these recommendations, because this is really where visibility starts now. So as I said, this SGE has kind of changed the game as far as where things are displaying on the Google search results page. The top results, like I said, are no longer just pay to play. So this having your hotel featured in this AI-powered hotel recommendations is a huge new opportunity for discovery. So the search generative experience curates this list based on how well your content, pricing, availability, and reviews align with the traveler's query. This means things like schema markup, rate parity, content feed quality, and descriptive property content now matter more than ever, because that's what Google is going to pull from to potentially select you to appear in this search generative experience curated list. So you could be spending heavily on paid media, but never appear in that first kind of view if Google's AI doesn't see your property as a good match. So the task at hand is getting Google to recognize your property as that relevant match. So how do we do that? On this slide, we have how Gemini selects these listings that are included. I kind of feel like a broken record, but it's really important. The ways that Google helps determine this relevance is going to include schema markup, dynamic rates and availability, which are usually coming over in real time from your CRS or your booking engine. For most Metasearch platforms, this usually happens automatically through an API connection. Review content is going to impact if you're included or not, and not just the rating, the star rating of your review. If things like quiet property are included in your reviews, or romantic weekend getaway is included, they will pull from those keywords in your reviews when someone searches romantic boutique hotels in Miami. Proper amenity tagging is also going to be a huge help, and just your overall kind of content quality is going to impact whether or not you have the opportunity to be displayed in these recommendations. So this kind of next wave of Metasearch, as I see it, the next wave of Metasearch success is about feeding the algorithm the right signals, like accurate rates, rich content, clear brand identity. The hotels that get featured in this SGE are going to be the ones with the strongest data foundation. So now that we've covered the factors that are impacting visibility in Google before Metasearch, so that SGE experience is an unpaid opportunity that happens potentially before Metasearch. So let's shift to how you can actually win within your Metasearch strategy. So I think it's important to note, even though Google's search generative experience appears at the top of the results page, Metasearch still holds a lot of highly valuable real estate on the search results page. And more importantly, I guess probably most importantly, It's one of the last remaining places where hotels can actively compete in real time for a direct booking. So the search generative experience is kind of shaping that first impression, but Metasearch is still where the booking decision battle is going to be won. And winning on Metasearch doesn't just come down to one factor. It is a combination of tactics. And these tactics actually rely on similar principles to ranking in that search generative experience. So content feed health, optimizing your content feed and schema markup to make sure that accurate information, Google is pulling accurate information from your site to match you up to that traveler intent, is very important. Next up, we have continually evaluating your bid strategy effectiveness and make sure that you are accurately tracking ROI to win at Metasearch. So accurately tracking ROI from Metasearch campaigns is super important, and I will tell you why. So something that we have to consider when we're interpreting marketing results in the AI generation is what marketers are now referring to as zero-click marketing. Metasearch is the most visible element of this kind of zero-click behavior. So basically what this means, the user can now see your rates, reviews, and availability all within a single interface like Google Hotel Ads or TripAdvisor. So with these AI-driven features like SGE and with Metasearch platforms, the trend that you might see is that there could be fewer clicks and less traffic to your website, which may be alarming to some. I think the kind of message I'm trying to get at here is if you are seeing that trend, don't panic, because this doesn't mean that you're losing control of the sales funnel. What this means in the current environment is that people are getting what they need from the search page results and maybe not necessarily your website. So as a result of that, as I mentioned, website traffic could be down, but it is not cause for panic immediately unless your Metasearch campaign is not producing ROI. If your website traffic is down slightly, but your Metasearch campaign is producing good return on investment, you can logically assume that those conversions are still happening. They're just happening directly. The information gather stage is happening directly on a Metasearch platform and not your website, which again is fine as long as people are still continuing to book. And next up, how to win in the Metasearch landscape, ensuring rate parity with OTAs. We will talk about the importance of rate parity on the next slide, but I think I said it earlier on, this is hugely important. So that's something that we're going to come back to in a second. And then I also just wanted to kind of share with you all, if you cannot truly invest in a Metasearch strategy for whatever reason right now, my recommendation would be to utilize Google Performance Max campaigns. So this is a Google ad type that will actually give you Google Ads placements along with other ad placements. This channel provides you with placements across all of Google's channel options, and it does include Google Hotel Ads. So, if you can't invest in a Metasearch strategy right now, for example, Visergy, we have a platform minimum of $1,000 a month for Metasearch spend. If that's not something that's in your budget or it wasn't budgeted for to this point in 2025, you could spend, $500 on a Google Performance Max campaign and still take advantage of some of those Google Ads placements some of the time. So just to kind of sum everything up, winning in Metasearch now means mastering the AI, mastering intent, matching your site to user intent, and So things are not just based on price and bidding, solely based on price and bidding anymore. But with the mention of pricing, we do need to talk about rate parity more in depth. So I think this might be my favorite slide because, again, if you know me, I love making this point because it's so important. So your hotel's rate compared to OTAs can directly impact your visibility in Google Hotel Ads. So we talked about earlier how Google's AI Gemini is evaluating your rates, your content, your reviews, and comparing all of that against the relevance of the user's search. So does it align with what the user is asking, or is there a better hotel option to show the user? So this is the question that Google is evaluating, because Google's core objective is to deliver the most accurate and trustworthy hotel information to their users. So if a user in a Metasearch format sees a higher rate on the official site than they did on an OTA, that is going to damage trust not only within Google, but it leads to fairness and transparency issues with your brand. So, even if you think about your own behavior as a consumer, if you book direct and then subsequently see a lower rate on an OTA, you might be upset. You might feel a little bit cheated. Google wants to avoid that. So, in order to do that, they want to show the user the best possible search experience. And for Google to then, that includes displaying the lowest possible rate. So if your direct rate is higher than OTAs, Google can downgrade your visibility, and this is regardless of how much you're willing to pay for the bid. So even if you are willing to pay the most within Metasearch, if you are out of parity, Google will inhibit your performance. Google will downgrade your impression share and show your ad less often. They're going to show the OTA because the OTA has the lowest price. And again, this whole point of Metasearch is to kind of shift your channel mix away from OTAs over time to direct bookings. So you don't want Google to downgrade your impression share because you're out of parity. So, and then even outside of impression share too, there's applications to this. I really think that adhering to rate parity gives you an opportunity to compete on factors other than price, such as location, amenities, and service quality. So I really think that this allows your hotel an opportunity to differentiate from others in your market and attract guests who value exactly what your property does best. So if there's one thing you get out of this today, make sure that your direct rates are equal or better to OTAs. And if they are equal to OTAs, you can also offer some kind of direct booking incentive, such as free breakfast, flexible cancellation policy, or something like that, to kind of sway guests to book direct versus through an OTA. All right, so we've talked about this a little bit more in depth now. As we kind of approach the middle to end of the presentation, I wanted to kind of take us back out to a little bit more broad view of Metasearch. So just in case you need any more convincing about why Metasearch is so important, I did just want to include a few other top reasons to invest in a Metasearch strategy. So, we talk about this a lot. Metasearch is it's a piece of your digital strategy along with other ad types and tactics, but it's an important part of the whole piece of the puzzle. So, some of the other benefits of using Metasearch would be, as we talked about with this SGE experience, Metasearch is influencing traveler decisions a little bit earlier in the process now. It's not just a last click kind of effort. So, this is something that you can utilize to your advantage in the mid funnel. And Metasearch is also a way that you can stay top of mind as users compare and explore options through Metasearch feeds. So obviously, the more placements that you have on the search results page, the better. And Metasearch is one of the ways among paid ads, among SEO, among the SGE recommendations that you can have gain more traction in real estate on the search results page. So secondly, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but I just kind of again wanted to highlight the importance of channel shifts away from OTAs over time. This is obviously important because it will lead to better return on investment. Direct booking obviously helps reduce OTA commission costs and will improve your profit margins over time, which is definitely a huge goal of many of our clients that we see. OTA reliance is not necessarily a bad thing, but over time, you want to definitely be trending towards direct bookings. And another important reason is first-party data collection. Every direct booking through Metasearch is a data collection opportunity, and this data is powerful fuel for remarketing efforts, for loyalty efforts, especially as we are moving, especially as we are moving into a privacy-first world without third-party cookies. Having first-party data at your disposal is definitely going to be significantly more important for your hotel. And lastly, showcasing your website. Again, shout out to our website team that makes beautiful, beautiful sites. So some people do the majority of their research through the Metasearch results page. But for those who do want to do more in-depth research about a property and do come to your site from a Metasearch platform, once they come to your site, this is your opportunity. This is your chance to control the guest journey. And that means showcasing your best content, offering perks and upgrades that they might not get on an OTA. There's lots of opportunities to build a lot of brand loyalty and things like that once they do come to your website from a Metasearch engine. So, hopefully you've made an investment on a great site, and this is your opportunity to showcase that. So, and what I find too, honestly, is that a well-optimized website and booking engine can actually convert at a higher rate than even OTAs. So those are some additional reasons why Metasearch is super important. And then to finish us off today, I wanted to offer a few takeaway items that you can do now to impact your Metasearch strategy, assuming that you are running one. So you can audit your rate parity. This is something that I would do if I was in a hotel's shoes right now. This is something that I would do immediately after this call. Start with the basics and make sure that you're showing in parity with what's showing on OTAs. Update your content feed where needed, if needed. Make sure that you're using the most up-to-date images. Make sure that your amenities are up to date. If you're, I feel like we see things where the hotel restaurant is potentially closed for renovations, or the hotel no longer has a spa, or they've recently opened a spa. Make sure that those amenities are up to date in your content feeds, and obviously across your digital platforms, but specifically talking about Metasearch, that's important to be updated in your content feed because that's where your Metasearch platform is going to pull your property information from. So make sure amenities are updated. Make sure your property descriptions are rich and accurate about your location, things to do maybe in the area even. I think I said this already, but as you get if you get new property images, definitely make sure those are updated. Make sure that you're using high quality images, high resolution images. Um, if you have any cancellation policy changes, things like that are things to things to update in your content feed. So make sure everything is up to date and good quality. Next up, add schema markup to your booking engine if it's missing. Our SEO team can obviously help you with that if that's something that you need assistance with. But Google uses this to determine if what your property offers matches the search query, and deems you as a relevant hotel to display on a particular search. So without schema, Google can miss or misinterpret what you offer. Schema also helps complement your content feed by ensuring that your on-site experience aligns with what Metasearch platforms are pulling in, which is also an important part of the guest experience throughout the booking process. So schema helps ensure your hotel gets recognized, matched, and recommended to the right traveler at the right time. So very important. Something else I wanted to mention is set up review alerts to monitor your reviews. You can set up review alerts for key terms like value, cleanliness, things like that. You want to be proactive and respond where it matters most as part of your reputation management strategy, because these reviews are becoming increasingly important in affecting your visibility within Metasearch platforms and within Google search generative experience. So, and lastly, if you need any help with any of this or getting set up with Metasearch ads, please feel free to reach out to us. My email address will be on this next slide. So reach out if you have any questions. I know we're going to get to questions, but if you have any questions about your hotel specifically or are looking for some kind of consultation on your Metasearch strategy, feel free to reach out. We are happy to work with you and to help in any way that we can. So thank you all so much. I think we have a little bit of time for questions. Before we do that, I'm just going to plug next week. We have Misty Wagner. Misty is one of our VPs here at Visergy. She will be hosting your webinar next week on distribution. And Misty is a wealth of knowledge and a wonderful resource. She has several years of experience within the industry. So that is definitely one that you don't want to miss next week. And with that, I think Devin's gonna take us into some questions. Hopefully you guys didn't give me any hard ones, but we'll see what's in the chat box.
All right, thank you so much, Anna. So for our first question, if Google's SGE is taking over the top of search, is Metasearch still worth investing in?
Ooh, okay, that's a good question. So SGE is taking over the top of search. Is Metasearch still worth investing in? So my answer is absolutely yes. So we know that Metasearch still delivers immense value. SGE might be influencing more on that discovery side, but Metasearch is still often where a booking decision happens. So as SGE filters these results more tightly, I guess, as they're becoming more exclusive with who they're including in these results, it's even more important to ensure that your hotel is still showing up in Metasearch, so that way you can still be included kind of in that conversation. So I would say like the search results page is kind of an ever-evolving ecosystem. And, as hoteliers and marketers, we have to be kind of increasingly vigilant to make sure that we're staying relevant and present on that search page. So I guess I think of it kind of like, it's kind of like a territory game. It's like real estate on that search results page is everything. And participating in Metasearch is still an effective and important way to grab that searcher's attention. I would say that, Metasearch is a hugely important part of especially your non-brand or prospecting and exposure strategy. So yes, absolutely still invest. Metasearch is still worth investing in. It's a huge tool that we have at our disposal to help you gain direct booking. So don't miss out because if you're not using a Metasearch strategy, you are definitely leaving money on the table. So that's a great question though.
Great, thank you. So for our next question, I may have missed it, but does SGE data come only from the hotel's website, or is it drawn from the broad range of distribution resources?
So that's a good question. And I would say that I think it's impossible to know exactly where Google is pulling all of this information from. I would venture to say that the majority of the information is like the first place that Google is going to look is going to be your own website. But I think that it can come from a myriad of places. And also too, kind of conversation that came up with a coworker internally as I was prepping for this presentation was, is Google using your search behavior to influence what is showing up for you, your own search behavior to influence what is showing up in your generative experience? So what shows up for SGE for me might be different than what shows up for you, Devin, if we do the same property search based on like the question asked, like what information Google can scrape from the internet from different sources to power that recommendation. And then also our own user behavior. If I was previously looking at a particular booking window and Google knows that I'm trying to go on vacation for a particular booking window, um, and the hotel that they want to recommend doesn't have availability during that time, they're automatically going to adjust what they show me based on the booking window. So my booking window might be different than Devin's booking window if we're both searching for hotels in Miami. So our own user behavior and Google's kind of predictive intent will impact that. Um, but yeah, I would say Google is probably pulling mostly from your website. That would probably be the first place. Assuming that your website has domain and has authority, and has trustworthiness as determined by Google, it's probably coming from your schema markup. I would say that Google is potentially pulling from content feed information as well, and your content feed could be distributing to like TripAdvisor. So it's possible that they're pulling in some of that information from something like a TripAdvisor. But that data should match up. Your content feed, your schema markup, that data should all match up. So you shouldn't have too many issues with that.
All right. So next up, rate parity is important. That's pretty clear. But what if the hotel has the lowest price versus the OTAs? Will the hotel still be penalized for not having rate parity?
That is a great question. And perhaps that's on me. So rate parity should be your direct rate should be equal or better. So if your direct rate is better than an OTA, you will not be penalized. You will be probably bumped up within those search results. So sorry, that's my fault. So parity is important, having equal and or better rates. The point is don't sell on an OTA a rate that is undercutting your own direct rate. But yes, at least in parity or your direct rate should be better.
All right. Next up, what percent of the overall digital marketing budget should be allocated to Metasearch?
Ooh, this is a good one.
Tough one.
I get this all the time. So I hate this answer, but this is what I say every time. It really is going to it's going to depend on a lot of factors. As a rule of thumb, I would say that, up to 25% as just kind of a ballpark is a strong starting point. So this ideal kind of percentage of what breakdown your meta search strategy should get out of your total budget is going to depend on your market size. Larger markets are going to need larger budgets, your brand strength, your direct booking goals versus your OTA mix. So it really is going to vary significantly by property. Independents will likely need to invest more heavily than a well-known brand. So kind of keep that in mind. But I would say kind of a rule of thumb, maybe like within the 15 to 25% range. But it also depends on what your total budget is. You know, everyone is working with a different starting point as far as where your total budget falls. So I would say 25% is a strong starting point, depending on what other digital tactics you're also running, because that's going to be important too. Are you running search ads? Are you paying for SEO? You know, what does your marketing mix look like is going to impact that as well.
All right, this one's an interesting question.
Oh, y'all got so many questions today.
There's still several more too.
Wow. Okay.
Can restaurants participate in true Metasearch auctions like hotels, or are there alternative strategies food and beverages businesses should focus on?
You know, that is a really good question. I am not necessarily sure if I am qualified to speak on food and beverage specifically. Google Hotel Ads is specifically for hotels. So restaurants are not going to be eligible for Metasearch for travel in the traditional sense of Metasearch. I would say that everything that I said about the search generative experience would also be applicable to a hotel as far as how you can get listed in those generative recommendations. I mean, schema markup on your website, for example, like that, there's not really a differentiation there. That's just kind of a technical piece, regardless of whether you're a restaurant or a hotel. But I'm sorry, Devin, read me the question one more time. I just want to make sure I'm answering it correctly, but
Can restaurants participate in true Metasearch auctions like
okay,
hotels, or are there alternative strategies food and beverage businesses should focus on?
gotcha. Yeah. So not able to participate in Metasearch for travel. As far as alternative strategies, I would say yes. You know, those specific strategies are going to look different for restaurants. Probably more like Yelp type of things. Again, I'm not sure that I'm super qualified to speak on food and beverage per se, just because we are so niche in hospitality. But a lot of what I said about the search results page is like paid advertising in general is still relevant strategies to a restaurant, just not Metasearch.
Okay, great. How is zero-click marketing factored into measuring Metasearch ROI?
That's a good question. ROI is return on investment. And another type of metric that we use for Metasearch and for paid ads is return on ad spend. So zero-click marketing refers to more of like the click and the website visibility end of the spectrum when we talk about results analysis, when we're evaluating the performance of campaigns. There may not be as many clicks on the ad, or I'm sorry, there may not be as many clicks to the website. But zero-click marketing doesn't necessarily impact the return on investment end, because the return on investment is based on conversions. So if someone essentially someone might be converting without ever landing on your website. So that's where you're losing the click. Essentially, you're losing the click and the view on your site in some cases. There are still people that like to do that in-depth research. If you're me and you're booking a hotel, it's not just like a meta search, a meta search, like boom, I book. I'm gonna do a little bit more research than that. So there are still people that are going to come to your website, but say they never hit your site, but they enter your booking engine and they complete a conversion. You're still getting that conversion revenue, and that's what factors into ROI and ROAS. So losing that kind of click, like I said, is not necessarily cause for panic, because ROI is how you should be evaluating, and you don't need that click metric for the return on investment dollars. You're looking at, for how much I'm spending, how much money am I making? That's what that ROI comparison is, and you don't need the click metric for that.
All right, great. How do you justify using ad spend during periods that the property historically runs high occupancy when Google and Meta cannot target specific periods of arrival?
So that's a good question. Sorry, say that one more time for
How
me.
do you justify using ad spend during periods that the property historically runs high occupancy when Google and Meta cannot target specific periods of arrival.
Okay. So basically, I think the question is saying, should I be spending on Metasearch during periods of high occupancy?
Yeah.
So that might be a time when you can pull back, especially if your availability is not there. Because Google is not going to show, if Google knows that your hotel is sold out for the dates that I'm searching, they're not going to show you as part of, they're not going to show your ad because they know that your hotel is not an available option to the user. So, Metasearch is definitely about presence, but I would say potentially depending on what your seasonality looks like, if there is a period where your occupancy is full, that could be a time where you want to pull back a little bit on your Metasearch spend. I don't see any issues with that.
All right, great. Should we be giving attention to how the GDS profile is shaped as well as the booking engine?
That is a good question. I would say Misty next week is going to be super qualified to talk about that. I'm not as familiar with the GDS profile, so I would say save that one for Misty next week, and she will have a fantastic answer for you. I just know it.
Okay. Is there a way to gauge your comp set positioning on performance in SGE?
That is a good, tough question. Is
Well, this will be our last one. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you guys are really putting me through the ringer. I think Jeremiah and Tristan had so many questions, but it's all good. I'm super
You've
glad.
had a lot more, actually.
Yeah, I'm super happy that people are interested in Metasearch in this way. I'm sorry, ask me that question one more time.
Is there a way to gauge your comp set positioning on performance in SGE?
That is a really good question. I am not sure that I have the answer to that. Is there a way? I guess you wouldn't know whether or not your comp set is appearing in the SGE recommendations. Trying to think of if there's a way that you would know that or could tell that. And since some of it happens behind the scenes, I think it would be hard to tell. Like you don't know what their schema markup looks like, for example. So I'm not sure. I don't think so. I don't think that there's a way that you would know if your comp set has more of a presence than you do in that SG experience. But I think the point is just do what you can to make sure that you are included in that. And that will, take care of your comp set.
Okay, great. And thank you. I know we didn't get to all the questions, but we only have a couple minutes left. If your question did not get answered, please feel free to email Anna. Her email address is on the slide right there. And I just would like everybody to save the date for June 12th. We're going to be having an expert panel and networking event. Details to come, so keep an eye on your email and on the Visergy and HSMAI South Florida socials because we'll have all of the details for that soon. And we look forward to seeing you next week with Misty Wagner talking about distribution. And that's all from our end. So everybody have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much for joining.